That's about all I've got to say, but I want to introduce you to the first citizen who's buried out here. Now, I know he looks like quite a dandy over there. That's old Kit Carson. But I want you to move on around so you can hear him, and he'll tell you, and you'll see that he's just a regular sort of guy like the rest of us.
How y'all folks doing today? Got us a whole bunch of folks come see us at the old Rough and Ready Cemetery. My name is Kit Carson. I was buried here in 1915, and well, I'd like to tell y'all a little bit, some stories from the old Rough and Ready community, if y'all willing to listen, that is. Let me tell y'all about my wife, Mamie. She was the prettiest girl in town. I even got a picture here to prove it to her. Y'all want to look at it if you want? She was always the most beautiful person in town, most beautiful girl in town. She was from over at the Jones community down on Bowser Road. Her daddy, Monroe Jones, he was pretty well off for them days with cotton gin and all. He even started the old Jones School on the Osmond Buff Road. And well, with her daddy being rich and all, she was always used to all the finer things in life, store-bought hats and fancy dresses and all. Well, I went to dance a time or two with her, and every time I asked her for a dance, she always tried to slip me in the head of somebody on a dance card, so I knew she was kind of interested in me. So one day, I decided to get it in my head, I'm going to marry this girl. So it took me a few weeks to get my courage up and all, and I remember it just like it was yesterday. We were sitting on her daddy's front porch, her in the swing, me on the steps. I looked at her and asked her what she had plans for her to do the rest of her life, and she looked at me and she smiled. She said, "Carson, why are you asking? You got any idea?" And I said, "Well, Mamie, I'd like to marry you and keep you well and happy the rest of your life, if you're willing, that is." And she just smiled real big and looked at me and said, "Kit Carson, you know I love you and I'd love to marry you." Well, we was married a couple weeks later on a nice Sunday at the church and all. She gave me quite a few strong boys before I died and everything. But that ain't neither here nor there. I want to tell y'all about my fishing story. I am quite known as a fisherman around here. Well, I had to work hard to keep old Mamie and all them store-bought hats and all, but every once in a while we'd take us a nice vacation going down to the Saline River, camp out for a few weeks or something. Well, this particular year we pulled up down there and I noticed that the river was bit up, but the water was still nice and calm. Prime catfishing water there. I looked at old Mamie and I told her, I said, "Mamie, this year I'm gonna catch the biggest catfish anybody in this county's ever seen." She put down her knitting and looked at me and said, "Kit, you say that every year." And I said, "Yeah, well, I mean it this year." So we got everything all set up, camp all set up and everything, and boys took off on me. So I hollered at old Bob. He was camping right there next to us. I asked him, "Hey, Bob, you want to come help me string up a trot line?" He was for it, so I grabbed the old mason jar full of worms and a couple of chicken livers I'd got from the chickens I'd slaughtered that morning. We jumped in the boat and strung the old trot line across there and started baiting it up. We had an old bucket full of rocks we used for an anchor. Well, we got out there towards the middle about where that anchor was, and I told Bob, I said, "Hold on a minute, Bob, I gotta put these livers on this hook." Started putting livers on there, and he looked at me and said, "You putting all 3 of those livers on that one hook?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm gonna catch me a big old fish." He said, "It'll never work, Carson. Just go on and drive the boat." So we got finished baiting it up and everything. About that time, Mamie was hollering at me to come to supper, and Bob's wife Carol was hollering for him. So we come on in. Before I went up to supper, I tied a little jingle bell onto the line in case something big in it, I'd know it. Well, Mamie fixed us some nice chicken and dumplings that night. And after I helped her with the dishes and all, and we ate and everything, I was showing the boys about how the Indians would flake a rock and make a little arrowhead. And sure enough, I heard that jingle bell go off something crazy. Jiggle, 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 all the time. Well, I knew I'd done caught something, so I looked over at Mamie and she looked at me and she said, "Go on, get that big fish, kid." So me and my oldest boy jumped up and run down there with a lantern, jumped in the boat, me in front. I pulled us along and we had a pretty good mess of fish on there. About halfway out there, I was holding on to that line, I felt a real hard tug. I thought if I hadn't been holding on that line so hard, one of them hooks stuck right in me. Well, I got to pulling and yanking on that thing, realized I don't think I can get this thing in here by myself. So I got my son to help me, and we pulled and yanked for, I know, it seemed like 15 minutes, but it had been longer than that. Well, I finally seen the mouth and the whiskers, and I knew I had done caught the biggest catfish anybody's ever seen around here. Well, after about 30, 40 minutes worth of struggling and pulling and yanking, we finally got that big old monster of a catfish up in the boat. Went on, finished checking the rest of the trot line, got 6 or 8 more fish. I just remember I was too excited by this time. We come on back up to the bank and started whooping and hollering, and everybody come running to see what was wrong. And me and my boy held up that fish. It was hard for both of us to even hold it up. You know, Bob looked at me and said, "Dang, it's a big old fish, kid. Thing must weigh 100 pounds or better." I said, "Yeah, I know. It weighs even more than Mamie." Mamie looked at me and said, "Looks like you've done it, kid. You caught the biggest fish around here," and gave me a big old kiss. Well, y'all, you let me tell you some stories and all, but I got somebody else over here I want you to meet. Her name is Ethel Jordan, and y'all can scoot around this way.
Actually, we pronounce that Jordan, but my relatives today are saying Jordan. The saying is, if you've got more than $500 in the bank, you pronounce it Jordan. So you all can just call me Jordan, because I ain't never had that kind of money. You see, I come from a farm family. Now, my mom and dad are buried right behind me, and they were really good parents. My pa, he farmed all of his life, and that's all he really knew. Everything we grew, we ate. We didn't have this thing, what do y'all call it, Wally World? Isn't that what you call it? We didn't have that back then. We did have a store, and we did buy a few groceries now and then, but not much. Everything we ate, we pretty much grew. Now, my pa, he farmed all of his life, and I was the only girl in my family. I had all brothers. So all my brothers would help him on the farm. And me and my mom, of course, we got stuck with the housework. We would clean and cook and do all those womanly things we used to do back then. Now my mom, she was a housewife all of her life, and she liked that. That worked for our family. My pa, he was a really decent man, and he was a proud man. And he always made sure that we had enough to eat. Now my brothers, they were all cards, let me tell you. We didn't have TV back when I was coming up. Well, we did later, but not right off the bat. But my brothers would make up games for us to play. And we would play the normal games like hide and go seek and things that you all now know how to play. But we would make up other games. And my mother, she was a card too. She called one of my brothers So. And she called him So because she got mad at him one day because he wouldn't do anything. So she said, "Why don't you at least pick up something and start sewing?" So that name stuck, and we called him So ever since. Now, the other one of my brothers was named Fatty, and he was named Fatty for obvious reasons, and that name stuck too. Well, I myself never did get married, not because I didn't want to or because I wasn't a card back in my day, but because my mother didn't want me to. You see, I'm only 4'11", and back in those days, women died easily in childbirth. So my mother was scared that if I did get pregnant, I would die. So every time a boy would come near my house, my mother would make me go hide. She would make me go in my room and hide underneath my bed. So the boys never would get to see me. So I never really did get married. And it was kind of a lonely life, but I did have my family to love and support me. And you know what? She didn't want my brothers to get married either. One of my brothers got married, and she got upset because we would have dances at church and stuff like that, socials. And she got mad because he would take her to the socials. My pa didn't want to go dance. So my brother would take her to go dance. And when he got married, of course, he took his wife. So she wasn't too happy about that because she would miss out on the dances. But the woman he married was quite a lovely woman, so she got over it and she accepted the fact that he was going to get married. But I did, however, have a boyfriend. And my family found out about it because after I died in 1979, they found the love letter that he had sent me. And boy, were they shocked, let me tell you. They found the love letter and found out that I did have a boyfriend, but they never did get to meet him because he lived in another town. My family, they were sure great people, and I sure did love them a lot. But when I got older, I lived in a house down out here by that college out here, and I would stay up at night and burn a candle because I just knew that those bell-bottom, butterfly-cowan kids were going to come try and start a party at my house. So I would stay up all night with that candle and make sure that they did not come and party at my house. So I would sleep during the day because I didn't want those kids coming to my house and partying. And then my family would come over when I got older to my house, and they would complain that my house was way too cold. Can you imagine that? Them coming to my house and complaining that my house was too cold. So they brought me this electric blanket one day, and they said, you need to wear this electric blanket. You need to use it because it's too cold in your house and you're going to catch a cold and die. Well, I wasn't going to use that electric blanket. I didn't want to catch on fire. I don't know what they were thinking. So they insisted, so I finally did take the electric blanket, but I never did use it because I did not want my house to catch on fire. I'm glad you guys could come out here and talk to us because I don't get to talk to very many people nowadays. So I'm really glad you could come out here and talk to us. And if you, right over here, if you go talk to Mr. Bynum Maxwell over, he's quite a card, let me tell you.
My name's Bynum Maxwell. Yep. And you know, some folks built houses for a living and others plowed mules. Me, I had youngins for a living. That was the joke, at least. I had 15 of them rascals. Yep. I was from where now is what they call the Whitehall, but back in my day, it was the Jones community. I was really a cotton farmer, though, and I farmed cotton. But that wasn't the way it started out, though. I moved here from North Carolina in the year 1878. Picked up old Ida along the way in Mississippi, and we moved here and started to raise cotton a little bit. But that first year, 1879, was a tough one. I only had 10 acres of farmland and 70 acres of woods, and hell, the whole place was only estimated at $250. Wasn't worth much, and it was hard work. Didn't make a lot. But it eventually got better, and me and old Ida wound up having quite a few kids. We had 9, and with all them kids, it got to where I could farm more land and make more money if I had cotton. So that's what I did, and it was hard work during the summer. You'd work from sun up to sundown, picking, chopping, and hauling that cotton and all. And I also farmed most of the vegetables we ate around the house, like beans, turnip greens, squash, and potatoes, and all that such. But with all that summer work behind us, it left winter open to do a little hunting and trapping to make my money during the winter. But like I said, things started to turn out better for me, and with all those kids, I got to make enough money to buy me a Model T Ford and all. But soon after my boy Ray was born, he was the last one I'd have passed during childbirth. And shooting, washing, cooking, and cleaning weren't men's work in them days, so I had to find me another wife and quick. So I was talking to someone about my situation, and they told me to head up to the way of Collins and get me that young widowed woman named Enna McNeese Bullock to raise them there youngins. And that's just what I did, because she was like a widowed, like I said, and she didn't mind at all going with me. And I drove up there in my Model T Ford and hauled her back here with me. And we wound up burying and having 6 more youngins of our own. Well, like I said, I had quite a few kids, but that was just better, because you needed a lot of kids back in to farm all that land, especially that cotton, because it was hard work, like I told you. But like I said, things started to pick up, and I made a good name for myself, and I started having more. I guess I had 15 total, but I think Emma had a few kids that we also kept. They were my stepsons and daughters, and total I kept 19 kids on the place. But like I said, I was a farmer, and that's about all I'd ever done. And but I had some pretty good times. I was down at the river that time. Old Kit Carson caught that 100-pound catfish. We like to all go camp down there at Osgood's Bluff and have a big time. That time we baptized 6 after that powerful sermon Reverend Jordan preached out there at the Scrouge Out Church. It was a big time out there at the pond. And another time we had, I had to keep my daughter Gussie's son, Earl was his name. She died during, I think, well, a few years after he was born. I wound up having to keep him. We raised him up. And then I had a fine young man named Ray. He was my son, and his name was Ray Maxwell. And he had a dormitory named after him out there at the college at Monticello, because he was on the school board out there. And his best friend Marvin Bankston also had a dorm named after him. It just made me happy to know that my name was on some building somewhere. But